Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP here today because today we're going to be going through our NXT recap for this past episode of NXT. This comes as the NXT New Year's Evil edition of the show. This was on the 6th of January 2026, so kicking off the brand new year with a pretty big show. We've got lots to discuss here on this episode, so we're going to break everything down, go across all of the course of the action that took place across the course of the night. I say we get started and underway. So, it would be a little bit of a chaotic opening for NXT New Year's Evil because we were meant to be having Thea Hale defend her Women's NXT North American Championship one-on-one against the glamour of Blake Monroe. We would get Thea Hale making her entrance at the very start of the show, and she would be heading down to the ring, but she would get attacked by supposedly challenger Blake Monroe on her way down. Blake would be quite hellacious with her assault, and she would actually slam Thea Hale quite heavily into the barricade on the side of the ring. And that would basically put the matchup essentially in question. They were basically saying how it wasn't going to be happening anymore and that the match was completely ruled off. We get a little bit of an update later on in the night, basically saying how Blake Monroe wasn't going to be rewarded for her bad behavior, and that she'd actually been told to leave the building and leave the arena. And that was not going to be happening, anymore in the course of the evening. So, Women's North American Championship match cancelled for the night. As things stand, a little bit more about that later on as we go through this review. Whilst that sort of situation was happening, though, Thea Hale's literally collapsed on the outside of the ring, sort of like in that image that you can see above. And you got Ricky Saints making his entrance literally immediately. The dust hasn't even settled, and he's already making his way into the ring. He's got a microphone in hand once he gets in. And he cuts a little bit of a promo, basically saying that he has a special surprise, which is kicking off the new year with him. He says last year he needed NXT, but this year, however, NXT needs him. He talks about the likes of Trick Williams and Joan Evans taking the free agent route, whilst confirming that he himself is going absolutely nowhere. He looks to tonight's main event, which is obafemi one-on-one with Leon Slater for the NXT Championship, before then saying that he doesn't really care about either man, but he is targeting obafemi specifically more so because he knows there's 1-1 between them and there's a little bit of a score to settle. He said he's looking to make everyone aware that the new year will be absolute and that he's going to make his stamp on 2026. So Ricky Saints, basically just being quite assertive there with what he has to say. He's coming for the championship and he's hoping 2026 will be a big year for the absolute. We go into our next contest after that, and that sees a one-on-one match in a pretty heated feud that we've had in the past number of months between Tatum Paxley and izzidame. This is a rematch from a couple of events ago. And this would see Tatum Paxley get a little bit of revenge here against izzidame. Quite a competitive back-and-forth match. You can see the animosity between the two ladies. They portrayed that very well during this matchup. And it was just a pretty solid one-on-one matchup between the two women. Like I said, just back and forth, quite even contest throughout the majority. And in the end, we see Tatum Paxley getting into a position where she goes to the top rope. She hits a 450 splash onto izzidame, follows that right up with a cemetery drive, and that'll be enough for Tatum to get the win. And a massive, massive result for her, sort of putting her bitter rival, a former friend, down. And maybe get some momentum going forward now for Tatum Paxley, looking to sort of use that going into 2026. Could be a big year for Tatum. Following on from this, we would then have the Women's NXT Championship match, and that would see Kendall Gray, the number one contender, go one-on-one with Jacyjayne of Fatal Influence, the champion herself. This would be quite a pretty decent match, to be fair. You talk about Fatal Influence, you've always got that outside interference option with Lainey Reed, with Fallon Henley. We'll talk about that in a couple of moments. But first and foremost, just want to say Kendall Gray put on a very good show here alongside Jacyjayne. They both had great chemistry within the ring together, and it was a really solid one-on-one matchup here. The championship felt important, and just generally speaking, was a really nice flowing contest. Towards the end of this matchup, we would see Lainey Reed and Fallon Henley getting involved because Kendall Gray locks in the armbar, which seemingly is obviously causing Jacyjayne a lot of trouble. And Fallon Henley immediately gets into the ring, literally inside the ring, in the ropes. And she would basically get up in the face of the referee, providing a distraction. Lainey Reed then drags Kendall Gray out to ringside and immediately gets dropped by Kendall via belly to belly. Fallon goes onto the apron, and as she's doing so, we then see Ren Sinclair get involved, and she sort of drops Fallon from the apron to ringside, but then Ren Sinclair gets a rolling encore for her troubles, knocking her down onto the ring or onto the ringside area. Kendall looks to hit the shades of grey from the ropes in sort of like an Oblivion style manner from like Liv Morgan that you would see from her. But Fallon is able to get back up to her feet just in time, and she keeps Jacyjayne grounded so she doesn't actually get hit by the offense. And Jacyjayne then rolls up Kendall Gray in order to get the victory and to retain her women's NXT championship. But yeah, like I said, solid matchup, pretty decent finish to be fair for me personally. I quite liked it. There were a load of people involved. And yeah, it's that typical heelish, fatal influence style win that we have just been very accustomed to over the last year or so. So yeah, Fallon coming up trumps here really for Jacyjayne being the MVP of the result in this one. But yeah, what a matchup from both ladies, and still your champion is Jacyjayne. So going into our second half of NXT then, we would have a bit more information on this NXT Women's North American Championship situation. I mentioned earlier on that Thea Hale was no longer putting the gold on the line against Blake Monroe. She actually would have a backstage segment alongside Jordynne Grace. We've seen those two have interactions over the past number of weeks. For whatever reason that is, I'm not entirely sure. Some sort of advice situation going on there. But either way, regardless, Thea Hale would also be joined by Ava in this conversation, and she would basically just demand that Blake Monroe would be brought back into the arena. Ava says no, she isn't going to reward bad behavior. And Thea says, well, okay, if I can't have Blake, let me just have someone random. And she says, can I bring back the North American Championship? Well, can I bring back the Open Challengers? Ava at first says no, says that that's not a good idea. Thea is not in a condition to do so, and it's not a wise idea. But Jordynne Grace basically convinces Ava, saying, you know what, she's made her choice, just let her do it. If that's what she wants, then let her have at it. Ava agrees basically immediately afterwards. Didn't take much convincing from Jordynne Grace, and Thea Hale, would then get her opportunity to put her gold on the line here in an open challenge. We see a lot of the locker room come on down for this one. There's likes of girls from like Evolve, some of the NXT talent as well, sort of like a mix and match of people sort of like looking to try and get a championship opportunity here. And then we see Tatum Paxley with her chainsaw, which we saw a few weeks ago. And she would sort of clear the path, just going straight towards the side of the ring. And as she's about to get in the ring, she's beat by none other than izzidame, who she just beat earlier on in the night. And izzidame gets in the ring, but from behind Thea Hale, causing a opportunity for her to take advantage and to attack Thea from behind. The match begins, and we do get Thea Hale one-on-one with izzidame for the NXT Women's North American Championship. So this match basically goes as standard, you would imagine, based on the situation. Thea Hale, she's not 100%, she's not in a good way, and she shows that during the matchup. And honestly, really, really well done here from Thea Hale, because she sells the effects from Blake Monroe earlier on superbly in this matchup. She is clearly sluggish. She's not moving as quickly as she normally does. She's really playing on the fact that she is injured and hurt. And it's just really good work from Thea Hale, generally speaking here. I thought she sold it ridiculously well. izzidame, right place at the right time in this matchup, and we see her take advantage when Thea Hale has her on the top rope. Sort of comes after Izzy's looking for some aerial offense, but Thea tries to take advantage, looks for a Kimura lock, doesn't quite get it locked in and well enough, and Izzy sort of powers through it. And we then see Izzy hit Dame over, which she now calls her double-handed choke bomb. And that would be a super one, an avalanche style, if you will, from the ropes. And that would be enough to get the victory here over Thea Hale and pick up the 1-2-3 to win that NXT Women's North American Championship. So get a brand new champion crowned here. izzidame just lost to Tatum Paxley earlier on in the night, but now she's the Women's North American Champion. So what a night for izzidame, down and then up at this situation. And speaking of crazy situations, we then have probably the most chaotic moment of the night, which is quite surprising based on what's gone on so far. Ethan Page comes out and has a bit of a promo in the middle of the ring, and he basically talks about his victory over Moose the week before on NXT, basically saying how he's the greatest North American alive. You're reminding everybody of that fact. He says it all the time. And he says that Oba versus Leon isn't the main event, but actually he is. He questions Obafemi only defending the NXT title in one part of North America, comparing that to himself, who he describes as a globetrotter and an international sensation. Jasper Troy comes on down, reminding Paige that he's the monster of NXT and how the Speed Championship isn't the only title that he'll be holding this year. We then see Josh Briggs come down, telling Jasper to shut up before telling Paige to stop wasting time with losers like Miles Bourne. Stacks, he comes down, accompanied by Ariana Grace, basically saying that he's the only NXT star currently holding TNA gold. After all the success of NXT talent winning TNA titles last year, he's the only one that remains a champion from TNA. He reminds Ethan that he's the TNA International Champion before saying how big he and Ariana are as a couple. Charlotte Hill comes on down next, and we see him saying that him and Stacks have a TNA International title match confirmed for next week after he spoke to the higher-ups between TNA and NXT. Following that, we see Tavion Heights coming down to the ring next. He reminds Jasper that next week he goes one-on-one with him for the Speed Championship. We then see a brawl break out between all the men in the ring. Ariana Grace, sort of a bit of a comedy effect here with Shiloh Hill. There's sort of like a moment where Shiloh like spins her around, that like sort of like has her in like a sort of like a precarious situation. And as he's sort of like looking down upon Ariana Grace, he just drops his fake tooth onto Ariana. She absolutely freaks out. And yeah, we do see Charlotte Hill standing tall at the end of all of the chaos and all the crazy situations regarding this. Originally an Ethan Page promo, but it just turned into who's who of he wants to basically make a statement in 2026. Going into our main event, we would see Obafemi go one-on-one with Leon Slater for the NXT Championship. This would be a pretty fun contest, to be fair. Two completely different styles. You got the power, you've got the pure strength, the muscle of Obafemi, and then you've got the really quick, bursting energy of Leon Slater, high-flying action. Yeah, it's two clash of styles here, but it's one that worked really, really well. The whole giant versus cruiserweight sort of thing has basically been a staple over the years from time to time, and this one was another rendition of that working quite well. Really good matchup here in our main event of NXT. Both men really sort of like had like a great showing in this one. And Obafemi, he would get the victory in the end, retaining his NXT Championship. He hits a fall from Grace. This comes after an extremely close call from Leon Slater having a pin attempt. It's sort of like a rolling through of a cover, just like getting the shoulders down, and literally it must have been a kick out of like 2.9. It must have been around that sort of area because it was extremely tight. A lot of the crowd sort of like popped for it. The commentators were saying how close it was. They're making a really big deal of it, and it was literally just a fraction away from Slater winning that championship. But like I said, over with the fall from grace moments afterwards to get the victory and the 1-2-3 to win the matchup and retain his NXT Championship. Once the dust sort of settles, we see the camera go straight to the backstage area where Ava is sort of addressing, looks like a lot of talent from Evolve specifically here, just basically telling them that, you know, a lot of talent have now moved on from NXT to the main roster, and there's opportunity for call-ups from elsewhere. As she's sort of saying that, we see Robert Stone rush into the room, and he asks Ava if she just saw what Obafemi just did. We don't know what's happened here because we're not watching it. It's literally on Ava in the situation backstage. So we don't know either what's happening at this point. The camera then pans back to the ring where we see the NXT Championship alone in the middle of the ring on the mat with Obafemi nowhere to be seen. So Tony D'Angelo can be seen in the crowd watching on here, but Obafemi's nowhere. So it looks like, to me, the NXT Championship has been relinquished by Obafemi, and he's probably headed to the main roster ASAP. So that's quite an interesting situation. Why they didn't show Obafemi relinquishing the title, I don't really understand or know, but that's my sort of 2 cents on this situation here. That's quite the bold statement at the end of this episode of NXT. And New Year's Evil as well. What a show it was. Absolutely crazy stuff going on from start to finish here. So much drama, so much intensity, so much chaos. Yeah, there's a lot to take in. So, yeah, what a show it was. Really, really enjoyed it. We see a new champion in izzidame as well with the NXT North American Championship for the women's division, which is pretty cool. And then a couple of defenses as well earlier on in the night. But yeah, just a really good show overall from start to finish. Just solid. I give this one a 9 out of 10. Just really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, there's a lot to take from this and questions to be asked going forward as well. So yeah, I guess, you know, we look forward to see what happens here with the NXT title. There are a lot of names around that situation, so who's going to step up and, you know, be the next NXT champion if it has been relinquished. So that has been the push with Nick and KP here, our review of NXT's New Year's Evil for 2026. If you guys enjoyed this one, please let us know in the comments what you thought, whether it's good, bad, and different. We'd love to hear what you're thinking, whether you enjoy the show, whether you think maybe that was the wrong decision for Obafemi to relinquish that title. It's a big talking point, so I can understand it. If you like this one, then please hit a like of the video and subscribe to our channel, keeping up with future releases coming out very, very soon. We're always pumping up the content here at The Push. Very, very busy, working very hard. But for now, this has been everything for us here in this episode. Thanks for tuning on into The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy, and goodbye for now.